Hey everyone and welcome to a bit of a different video today, and that is one on a game I've been lucky enough to take part in a closed beta for over the last weekend, and that is for Battalion 1944. So first question, what is Battalion? It's an upcoming competitive first-person shooter set in the Second World War. It really is a game that's going back to the old school, back to where first-person shooters really began. Originally kickstarted by the devs at Bulkhead Interactive, it very quickly hit its goals and carried on past that, nearly tripling what they wanted from Kickstarter funding. So what does the game offer right now? Well, right now it offers two playable factions, the US and German forces, choice of 6 weapons for each side, from weapons like the M1 Garand to the STG-44, and both sides are balanced off against each other to be able to provide as balanced gameplay as possible, and without one side obviously having clearly better weapons than the other. Add into that 6 game modes. You've got Total Domination, Domination, Capture the Flag, Free-for-all, Wartide, and Wartide Light. You are going to have a multitude of ways of putting those weapons to the test. Wartide really is going to be the competitive side of Battalion. It's quite an innovative game mode that forcibly switches up the gameplay as you play through it. Unfortunately, I wasn't really able to get any footage of it. The background footage is going to be all from the arcade game mode. But what the gist of it is, it's a real spin on search and destroy that you're going to recognise from any FPS game. It's the first of 13 rounds, it's 5v5, you're going to either need to destroy the target or you're going to need to kill the entire enemy team. Sounds pretty standard so far, right? Well, this is where things get interesting. The teams all share a pool of weapons. You've got 3 of each class, and then if you die as that class, you will drop a class card. If that card is recovered by your own team, it gets added back to the pool of weapons that your team has to choose from. However, if it's recovered by the enemy team, it's added to their pool of weapons. Now, as you can imagine, 5v5, 3 of each class, it's possible to run out of weapons in your pool. Well, there's a default class for each faction that has unlimited picks, so you can do an eco round if things start to go bad and if you're running out of classes, so you don't waste any of your team resources. And you have a chance to regain some classes from the enemy team, and that means that team economy is going to be a huge thing to keep an eye on as well. Now, while unfortunately I didn't get much of a chance to try out this game mode, I've watched a whole bunch of gameplay on it from other content creators, and I really like the idea of it. It's a really interesting sort of twist on the old, the gameplay of old school search and destroy, and economy management really switches things up. Sometimes pretty forcefully depending on how the game is going, much like economy management in a game such as Counter-Strike. Lose a bunch of rounds in a row and you might be on eco for a couple of rounds to get some classes back again, and it opens up some different strats. It definitely sets it apart from other games with similar game modes, and I can definitely see this being something I would watch even at a competitive level. So apart from that game mode, let's talk about the game itself. What do I think of it? Well, honestly, it feels, I found it to be fantastic. I grew up with games like Call of Duty 2, Medal of Honor, stuff like that, and it feels so old school. It feels like I'm almost back at school, going around my mates afterwards for a game. The gameplay, it was fast, it was ferocious, but it didn't feel clunky. It's really well done. Some games, recently have suffered, other problems, especially when they're really quick games, like a wonky netcode leads to, hit detection feeling weird. Honestly, in all the current modern big games, I've really felt that. Things like PUBG, Rainbow Six Siege, that sort of thing. But in Battalion, I didn't really feel that. Nothing at all. Shots that I expected to hit did every single time. And I never really had a moment where I felt like the game cheated me in some way. And that reduced a lot of the frustrations that I have with modern FPS games. Because sometimes in those games, it feels like if the game says no, I lost a firefight because the game said so, rather than actually being outplayed. Whereas with Battalion, it felt very much like the fact that if I lost a gunfight, it was because I was outplayed, and that he was better than me, or I played badly, or I was badly positioned, rather than it being the wonky game that caused the problem. And that's refreshing, so refreshing, and something I think that the more competitive people that I know have been crying out for quite some time. The maps themselves felt amazing, and they looked great too. Now, they're not the most visually fantastic out there, but the graphics fit into the whole old school shooter thing, but they also feel fresh and good at the same time. It's very cleverly done and led to so many nostalgic moments, it's unreal. The maps themselves have a lot to offer for different styles, and while maps such like Coastal, which you're going to see a lot in the footage, they really favour the bolt-action rifles and the sniper rifles, maps like Trench are very balanced to give the submachine guns like the Thompson or the MP40, or shotguns like the Trench gun that gives them their niche, while giving the slightly longer sightlines for rifles as well. I liked the 3 available maps I got to test quite a bit. Each of them had their distinctive styles and the way that they played. The weapons themselves, they too felt really good, and I couldn't think of any class that was way too strong. The snipers, naturally, with their capacity to one-shot kill, were of course very, very strong at range, as you would expect, but you've closed the gap with them with the STG-44 or the Thompson, and you would tear them to shreds. They each had their niche, and the maps factored into that quite a bit, giving areas that really suited each class more than others. Visually, the weapons were all top-notch too, as was the sound design. They all sounded really punchy, but also almost instantly recognisable as well, which helps with that whole nostalgia vibe that the game does so much to build on. But with all that good work, I mean, that could be undone in an instant if the game goes the way of the big games and introduces crazy skins and microtransactions. Well, it's only good news here. All cosmetics will be related to in-game progression, there's going to be no microtransactions, and they will all fit into the historical vibe that the game is sticking to. No smoke grenades looking like baked bean cans, or Thompsons with go faster stripes and flames down the sides. Only stuff that fits into the visuals of the game, which is music to my ears. All in all though, I had a huge amount of fun playing Battalion 1944 during this beta weekend. It's something that if you like your FPS games, I would absolutely recommend picking it up. Especially since the price was announced just $15. It's crazy good value for money. If you've been looking for your old school FPS fix, then this game will scratch it and more. I'll be picking this game up and playing it when it goes live for early access on February the 1st for sure. And I will recommend it to absolutely everyone that I meet. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a bit of a different one. I don't usually do review type videos, but I like Battalion so much that I decided I was going to try and do one for you guys. Leave some feedback in the comments below about how you feel about the game if you got to try it, or any feedback on the video itself. But for now, many thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next video.